Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll get started. We have lots of good presentations today. I don't see one of our presenters on yet, but we will play it by ear. We'll put him last if and when he calls in, if it's late. But my name's Leanne Hackman-Carty. I'm with Economic Developers of Alberta, and we've been doing these webinars since COVID pretty much started. Wanted to give as many people as possible great resources on business and economic recovery. And our last webinar series here, we have one more left after today. We've been partnering with the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association. And so thanks to them for participating in this webinar series as well. We will be taping this video and sharing it with our members if they want to refer to it after, or yourself if you want to share it. We will also have on the sidebar, if you want any questions for our panelists, we're going to do that at the end. So feel free to put your questions in the box. And my colleague Nancy Toombs will be curating that box and bringing those questions forward at the end of the presentations. So we've got 4 presentations today. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Cathy Heron, who is the Mayor of St. Albert and also with AUMA, to just bring greetings on behalf of AUMA and introduce our panelists.
Those who have your videos on, I can see a few familiar faces, so nice to see that. And a great opportunity for AUMA. So greetings and welcome to today's session. As was said by Leanne, my name is Cathy Heron. I am the Vice President and Director of Cities up to 500,000 with AUMA, the Alberta Urban Municipality Association. But my day job is really the Mayor of the City of St. Albert. AUMA is really proud to sponsor this webinar series with Economic Development Alberta. Today's topic is of particular importance to AUMA because one of our members' top priorities is local economic development. I'm especially interested in bringing opening remarks on the topic Alberta's technology future, given my long-standing involvement with the Smart City Alliance, which is an Alberta organization dedicated to the advancement of innovative technology and database solutions to many of the complex issues facing municipalities. The City of St. Albert is actually one of the founding members of the Alliance in 2014. One of the key objectives of Alberta's technology futures is the accelerated identification, development, and market application of new local solutions. These solutions are essential to the recovery and growth of Alberta's economy. With that said, I'd like to introduce our speakers, and I don't know if the order will change if they're all here, but we have Jason Schweitzer, the Executive Director of Alberta Clean Technology Industry Alliance. We have Bob Mitchell with Pure Enertech Research, which I think might be shortened to Perry, and David Chavez, VP Partnerships Platform of Calgary. So I will turn it over to the speakers.
Thank you, Mayor Heron. I think we'll start with Carrie Gordon then with Creative Destruction Lab.
Thank you, Leanne. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay with everybody. So I'm going to just walk through a quick, I assume we still have the 8 minutes as we discussed. So just talk a little bit about Creative Destruction Labs, Rockies. We're based here in Calgary, what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and the impact that we're seeing with our Alberta companies. So we are a Creative Destruction Lab, Rockies, as I said, and we started in 2012 based out of the University of Toronto. And it really became a vision of our founder, Ajay, who is an economics prof at U of T, really was struck by how Canada is amazing at research, science, technology. We are front leaders globally. And yet when it comes to the commercialization of those technologies and science-based learnings, we really don't meet the mark. And so he set out to prove that we could move through the commercialization phase. And really, it was founded in bringing together the best science and researchers that we have, combined with the entrepreneurs that we have in Canada, those people who have gone from idea all the way through to exit, and then embedding those two components within the business schools, and really being able to, the third aspect of our secret sauce, if you will, is the MBA program. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but very quickly, that's an overview of us. We are, as I just said, embedded into our universities. We have 8 outlets or 8 labs across the globe. And you can see the schools here that we are associated with. So University of Calgary, UBC, across the water, we have Oxford, and HEC in Paris is just new to us. And as I said, the marriage of the business school is so important to the work that we do. And when ventures or startups come into the cohort, they will then be partnered with MBA students who will follow that founder through the time that they are involved in our programming. As I mentioned, we have 8 sites. We also have streams or stream thesis, everything from AI through to supply chain, agriculture, ocean. So what we really do is look at those individual sites and what are the, where are the benefits, where do they have that right to win? I used to work for Calgary Economic Development, so the right to win we talked a lot about. So for Rockies, you'll see our focus areas are going to be in energy, and we are about to announce that agriculture will also become a focus for us, and Prime is a general stream. The impact, sorry, I just have to move everybody to the other side. The impact that CDL Rockies, just again speaking in that economic development language, which is we had our first cohort in 2017. As you can see, 13 graduates. We had 50 jobs created, raised $14 million, and that involves 35 MBA students. Fast forward to our graduates, which just happened a couple of weeks ago, 24 grads. During the time that they were involved in the program, which is November through to June, raised $38.2 million, and we had 37 MBA students. Unfortunately, I don't have jobs created for you in terms of those stats. I'm just in the process of gathering that. So that's a local lens of the impact there. CDL Energy, as I said, we really focus on we really look, I guess the ultimate CDL fit, I hear this a lot, is what would make a good fit for CDL. It really starts with the founder. We look for defensible science and technology. What I mean by that is either IP, or so intellectual property, trade secrets. Really, we love that founding team that is coming out of a research lab, an industry expert who has spun an idea out. We really love that defensible science or technology, partnered with a coachable team. In our mind, it's somebody who brings that industry expertise, but really is not necessarily aware of what it takes to grow a business, and that's where our founder or our mentors come in. I've chosen a couple of our founders here. We certainly have lots, but these are 4 individuals that bring some real expertise to our CDL Energy stream. So everybody from Peter Terzakian, who most people are very familiar with, Marty Reed, who is CEO of Evoke Innovation, an amazing person to have in the room from an investment standpoint. Judy Fairburn, again, another local supporter, and Deborah Peacock. So we surround our founders with these mentors, and the founders go through a process of 8-week business judgment, as we call it, process, where they set usually three objectives every 8 weeks. Those objectives need to be met. They work with their mentors. If those objectives are not met, you are cut from the program. So it is very competitive, and it is all about action. So that is our energy. And I've just put some idea or some concepts down on the screen there of what we look for in terms of, again, what makes a good CDL fit. So that's our energy stream. We're just about to launch ag. In fact, that'll be coming out in the next couple of days. Same concept. We really want to leverage what Alberta is great at, and we have some amazing industry leaders and expertise in agriculture. So how can we put our CDL model to work and really help grow and have impact for our agriculture industry? So we're looking at everything from sustainable agriculture, farm tech, carbon value chain, data and connectivity. Those will all be, if you're looking at founders or companies, again, research projects that are working in the ag space, these are companies that we really want to hear from in terms of the agriculture. We also have Prime, our third stream. You'll see that this is a happy face of lots of different people. Prime for us is obviously any types of technologies that don't fit within agriculture or energy. Those can be digital health, medical devices, because of the amazing work that's happening up in Edmonton with Amy and machine learning, artificial intelligence. Companies that are founders that don't fit into energy or health will fit into our Prime stream. And again, I've just tried to capture some of the mentors to give you a sense of who is in the room and how we can help the founders coming to within CDL. These are a couple of examples of alumni who have come through our program and the types of money that they have raised, everything from energy to med tech devices. Thought this would also be an interesting slide for you from an economic development standpoint, which is capital attraction. These currently are the different capital partners, either through venture capital, family offices, limited partner, any of those types of organizations that are putting money into the ecosystem and into our founders. These are our current partners that we have at CDL. At Rockies, sorry. And then also to give you a sense of some of our corporate partners, we're about to add a few more. I couldn't share that slide until the official announcements come out, but this will give you a sense of some of our corporate partners and how they're supporting not just CDL Rockies, but really helping grow the local ecosystem. So that is a very quick overview. Leanne, I hope I'm still within my 8 minutes, and I welcome questions. I know we're saving that for the end.
Carrie, and thanks for educating. I know some people are familiar with what you guys do, but I think there's some that aren't. So thank you very much for that overview. I see Jason Switzer's on the line now. So Jason is the Executive Director of Alberta Clean Tech Industry Alliance. So Jason, if you want to go ahead.
And can I share my screen as well, Leanne?
You should be able to.
Great. There you go. Are you able to see my deck?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we can see it.
Well, thank you. It's always tough coming after Carrie and the terrific work that CDL is doing and that Carrie's been doing for many years in this space. But I'm really pleased to speak to the pace and growth of the clean tech sector in this province. Obviously, the establishment of CDL a few years back has been a big boost to the sector broadly. And of course, similar to CDL, we've been working, and you'll see this, primarily when you look at the clean tech ecosystem in Alberta, a significant portion of the entrepreneurs are focusing on environmental solutions within the resource sector, oil, gas, mining. But probably the most rapidly growing, about 1 in 10 of the entrepreneurs are in the ag tech space as well. And I think that's an area of tremendous growth. We've seen a few exciting exits in that space as well. So I'm really pleased to hear about that program at CDL. Actia was started back in 2011 with the premise that Alberta could be a global leader in clean technology. And this just gives you a sense for clean tech venture formation per dollar of GDP and per population, per capita population. And you can see, Alberta is really good at establishing ventures. We estimate somewhere between 150 and 300 companies in this space. That is developing novel technologies and business models to improve environmental and economic performance. And that really sets up a kind of question. Alberta's had a great track record of building exciting transformative technology, of course, Iostra and oil sands, but also more recently with Amy and in the artificial intelligence space. We have it within us to make effective growth plays in this space, and clean tech is an area where we have, among the world's highest concentrations per capita of chemical process engineers. We have a very high performance financial sector that's very good at funding and financing large scale technology projects. We should be able to do really well in this space. And Actia has grown quite substantially over the course of the last several years. Beginning in 2016, we started to build out our member base. Today, we're at 90 venture members and a number of very core partners in a number of different sectors. We have banks and investors of various kinds, accelerators, service providers, and so on. But a very exciting group of entrepreneurs, many of whom are starting to get some global attention. Just some sector stats. So every 2 years, Actia coordinates a sector-wide survey in the clean tech space. We did one in 2016 to establish a baseline, and then more recently in 2019. And we'll be kicking off another survey shortly that will be reported out in 2021 in partnership with Mars. And what you can see is, a very a rapidly growing, but also quite unique clean tech ecosystem, very much focused on hard tech, chemical process innovations, advanced materials. So over half of the startups are in hard tech. And increasingly, the world's investors are looking for hard tech solutions, right? The solution to climate change or to feeding a world of 9 billion people will not come from the next social media app. It's going to come from new kinds of chemical processes or industrial processes, new ways of growing our food more efficiently, and the like, right? And that positions us, I think, quite well for what the emerging opportunities are. Actia, from a kind of association model, we work on a number of different themes simultaneously, with the idea of positioning Alberta as a global leader in clean technology. Getting the data and telling the story, we really want to shine a spotlight increasingly on the CEOs who are getting traction, building exits, and telling the story of the successes in the sector. Building community, I think for a long time, clean tech as a sector, the ventures in this space didn't see themselves as part of a community. So we're really trying to overcome that by bringing people together and helping them speak with a collective voice. External validation is really important if you want to get deal flow. So we're trying to figure out how we can help companies through different mechanisms like accelerators, but also through awards and other things to position themselves as gaining momentum and validation. We want to stimulate deal flow, foster partnerships with companies. Corporate Canada has been a slow adopter of innovation traditionally, and so we want to try and speed that cycle time up, and then of course improve the ecosystem. Some of the activities we've done in the past, we do an ecosystem map. Carrie helped us out previously on one of these. It's a sort of 2-page listing of all the key programs, services, funding programs, events, and investors in clean technology in Alberta. It's obviously due for a refresh. Things have changed dramatically, but we're waiting for the sort of recovery from COVID to begin, where we have some certainty around what sorts of programs and services are out there before we update this. But if you go to our website, you'll find in a very intuitive, very short form, almost like a concierge map that you would find in a hotel, a kind of listing of the key programs and services that are relevant to you as an entrepreneur. Our matchmaking events, we do 1 to 2 of these every year, have stimulated over $1.5 million of reported deal flow. We connect investors to our entrepreneurs through a curated matchmaking model, where and corporate partners as well. So we've been able through that to really crystallize a model that allows people to have very effective meetings over the course of a couple hours, and through that connect entrepreneurs to capital and customers. And we're seeing a lot of improvement in the ecosystem. Calgary was ranked by the Global Startup Genome, a sort of ecosystem rating agency for tech sectors, as one of the top 15 global clean tech ecosystems, sort of emerging. We're seeing an increasing attention within the media around the clean tech ecosystem, particularly now as we're talking about a sort of recovery plan and what role green recovery will play within that, and how technology providers in lithium recovery, carbon removal, and so on can play a key role in economic recovery, and real growth, of course, in access to capital and other kinds of opportunities. Now, we did a follow-up survey looking at the impact of COVID, and it's quite significant. Obviously, companies' revenues have collapsed in large measure, but I can also say that, and I do a interview series with our entrepreneurs where I record a sort of half-hour discussion with them about their story, which you can subscribe to. We're up on iTunes and SoundCloud. Our podcasts have a growing listenership, and what you hear from our CEOs is that a lot of them are able to close deals or getting international traction in spite of the downturn, and in fact, for many of them, as you probably know, even finding growth opportunities. So I guess it's a very positive story in many respects. Of course, we're all affected by what happens in the U.S. And globally, and how this recovery will look. But Alberta's got some really unique strengths. We're starting to see a growing attention to a number of our startups. There's some really exciting opportunities, of course, in a number of different areas, including this fall, the announcement of the winner of the Carbon X Prize, which is going to draw a lot of eyeballs as well to Alberta. So watch this space, and I encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, you can become a member of Actia for free right now. So please do come check out our website, www.actia.ca, and I look forward to answering any questions.
That overview, that's really great. And free, I think, sounds good to everyone. So that's a good price point. So thank you, and we'll have some questions, I'm sure, for Jason shortly. I now want to turn it over to Bob Mitchell. Bob's been a fixture for many years in Alberta in this technology field. So Bob, you can take it away now.
Yeah, Simon Knight and I are have a company called PERI, Pure Intertech Research Inc. We help inventors commercialize their technology. In our careers, we've helped about 35 Alberta organizations get started, starting with the first hydrogen pipeline in the Western Hemisphere was built in Alberta, and I had a part in that. Climate CASA, Clean Air Strategy for Alberta, C3, Canadian Green Tech Building Council, Oil Sands Leadership Initiative, COSIA, Carbon X Prize, Actia, and we are members of Actia, although we don't rate being shown on Jason's slide. Going to the agenda, 4 emerging trends we see related to the COVID crisis. And it's hard to talk about the COVID crisis without connecting it to the massive unemployment that we have in Alberta. And, that was largely caused in advance of COVID by extremely low oil and gas prices. And so, if I go to the old adage that when you feel like you've been buried, if you just wait, you might find that you were planted and you have the opportunity to grow into something even better. And I think that's the objective of today's discussion. So there are 4 trends I wanted to talk about. I can't talk about everything, and I only have 8 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to skate over the slides and just focus on a few things. If you have questions about anything I jumped over, let me know. So, we've got preparedness. How could we prepare Alberta and Alberta's economy, municipalities, and businesses for the next big health crisis? If it's a pandemic, a local epidemic, or anything else. So, PPEs, Alberta was lucky and had some forethought. We did better than most jurisdictions at having them ready. So what are the kinds of things we can do so we're ready the next time around? We've got to also value and protect our frontline healthcare workers. We worked on trying to help Leanne and her sister with the project they were doing in that area. Next time it'd be nice if a lot more of us get started on thinking of that well in advance of a crisis. Public awareness and understanding, as they say, the impact of the pandemic on your population is due to two factors: the density of your population and the density of your population. And then connectedness, getting ready for disruptions where we can't have our normal day-to-day life and we have to be ready for things. One thing, internet is public service. There are First Nations communities with really poor internet, but there are also affluent communities with really poor internet, for example, Bragg Creek. And then CRTC, we got to think about whether or not we want to take that back for the citizens it was set up to support. Right now, it is largely controlled by the industry. And we can talk more about that if you have questions. We got to take back manufacturing. For a while, we've been ramping up, scaling up, centralizing production. The internet has made scaling up and centralization redundant or obsolete. With the internet and 3D printing, you don't need large manufacturing plants, and you can rapidly switch from manufacturing one item to a completely different item by changing your software, not really your assembly line. Local nutrition, we know that moving food from California to Alberta, lettuce, for example, loses its nutritional value in 3 days. All we're importing really is some fiber and some moisture. So we have to figure out, how do we provide good nutrition locally? Redistribution of capacity. Alberta's getting off coal. So how do we do local distribution, switch our power grid over to really an interconnected network, which allows two-way flows of energy. Built environment and services, we're looking at things like mimicking nature indoors. What are the technologies we can use to neutralize pathogens? Recognize that plants serve important purpose inside a building. For a while, we've lost track of why we had them and how they help the health of the indoor air. Building layouts, we've been buying homes near our work with plans to flip them at the right time and move out to our forever homes. Now with the ability to work from home, we could buy our forever homes right away. We have to rethink services. You start looking at teaching edifices, 300-year-old institutions like universities and post-secondary. Is that really the best way to provide learning opportunities? Libraries, they often are the first thing cut in a downturn, but I think, if anything, we should learn from the COVID is that they really enable distributed learning, and we have to think of them as an essential service and rethink how they deliver services. Reinvent work and employment. This is a really big trend I think we're going to see. We've had a disruption to the way we work as a result of the COVID pandemic, and there's some opportunities for us to look at changing employee-employer relationships, and the end of the edifice complex. Do we really need to go to big buildings to do our work? Some of us have proven that our jobs can be well done and we can be really productive working from homes or from satellite offices where we're not exposed to such large gatherings. I think we're going to see a renaissance of cottage industries. And that goes back to these new web-enabled tools like 3D printing. And we've got to modernize and broaden Alberta's SuperNet. I think that term SuperNet is no longer applicable to what we've got in Alberta. The world has passed us by. So what are we doing as a company? Well, we're working on a number of things, but one of them is pursuing technologies to improve indoor air. We've identified a couple, pursuing a license for one to manufacture and distribute that technology from Alberta. We're helping a client reinvent an aging in place approach to developments. We're looking at helping a client develop a nimble state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Alberta using the same kind of robotic equipment as they use to manufacture the iPhone 10. We're helping develop a platform to muster Alberta expertise to address big challenges. You know, if you go back to when I was born in the 50s, we had all these engineers and assembly line experts come back from the Second World War, and they reinvented our entire economy and our capacity to do things. And that, I think, is one of the opportunities, the upside of the challenges we face in the employment of the high-tech people we have in Alberta. How do we address big challenges and reinvent our economy? You know, then we're looking at distributed cleaner powered generation technologies and how they'll fit into local communities and help with the resilience and the reliability of the grid. We've got an investment in an urban indoor farming technology. It's been winning international awards, and we're looking to deploy that as soon as we can. We're helping a startup out of Harvard Medical School on rethinking learning and developing a learning app and applying it to some of the industries we work with, and looking at waste as an opportunity. So that is my best attempt to get through this all in 8 minutes. Thank you.
Bob, I know you could probably take the hour to explain these various things that you're involved in, but that's great. It just gives you an understanding that there's so many opportunities here, and there's these little gems in Alberta that many of us don't know about, but how do we help accelerate their success? So that's great. So last but not least, we have David Chavez, VP of Partnerships for Platform Calgary. So David, if you want to wrap it up.
Sure. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, and let's hit this maybe to make it bigger. Does that work?
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks very much for the opportunity, Leanne, to share with the audience here what Platform Calgary is all about. It's also great to see some colleagues from Calgary on the call, Carrie, Jason, as I hope to be able to show you guys a lot of the programs and services provided by my colleagues in Calgary and ourselves and many others actually. Despite the fact that there seems to be a lot of us, we have a very large problem ahead, and we actually probably need a whole lot more supports for the innovation and startup ecosystem in Alberta. My name is David Chavez, and as Leanne mentioned, I'm with Platform Calgary, and great to be here today. I'll try to race through 8 minutes worth of slides. So first, a little bit about us. We are a not-for-profit. I saw there was a question in the chat about that. We've been around since 1981, and we really, the way we view ourselves, we're really owned by the citizens of Calgary through 3 shareholders: the Calgary Chamber, the City of Calgary, and then the University of Calgary. In terms of the services we offer to the community, really these are focused on several things. The first one is we are a provider of entrepreneurship training, advisory, mentorship. We run lots of events and try to help connect tech startups and their founders to a global network of customers, mentors, and investors. Second thing we do is we work with corporates and industry sectors to try to raise awareness and knowledge of so-called open innovation. Open innovation is really a way to do technology development and innovation, not just as individual corporations, but with partners such as startups. The reason, of course, we want to do this is to help our startups find B2B customers in these corporate sectors. And the next thing we do is we're really trying to drive a citywide movement or culture of innovation and try to connect community in the Calgary region. And one of the key enablers we hope to be able to apply to that is we're standing up this new innovation center in the East Village of Calgary, opening in 2021. Last thing I want to say about us is we work with partners and really try to make sure that if there are gaps in the ecosystem in terms of supports for startups, our organization tries to go bring that into the city and help orchestrate to make sure that the ecosystem as a whole has got all the support needed. All the work we do is really aligned with Calgary Economic Development's economic development strategy that's called Calgary in the New Economy. And as the tagline says, the vision for this economic strategy is to make Calgary the city of choice for the world's best entrepreneurs that are solving really hard problems, very similar to what Jason said. Some of these you can't solve via the next social network app on your mobile phone. Clean energy, safe and secure food, efficient movement of goods, and better health for people. Our vision in Platform Calgary is generating shared prosperity by helping to make Calgary the global hub for startups and innovation. And people often ask, like, why startups? The reality of the situation, if you look at job creation in the last several decades, based on US data, net new job creation is overwhelmingly coming from young companies less than 5 years old. That is to say, startups. And in particular, the innovation-driven startups are the world's fastest growing economic sector. And the third reason we really want to drive this vision is that the Calgary economy, and indeed Alberta, is really highly dependent on energy sector and other sectors that are undergoing rapid transition and disruption. So technology and innovation is really going to be key. We've set ourselves this North Star over the next 10-year period and have rallied a large community of ecosystem partners around this shared goal. We're trying to drive the number of so-called core tech companies in Calgary up to 1,000. Today, it's roughly, say, 250. So it's a 5x increase in core tech companies that we're trying to gun for. We estimate conservatively this is going to add about 45,000 high-quality jobs to the city and additional 10 billion in GDP, and also get us to rank up in the top 50 using the startup genome methodology that Jason refers to. So this is a community goal, and we've started a project along with partners at Zinc Ventures and A100 and others to try to visualize what this means. So this is kind of our United Way barometer, and it's very hard to read, so I'll just kind of describe what it's trying to say. All of the pink and red bricks are really the so-called core tech companies. This is we define this as companies with 5 or more employees, and there's different categories of sizes. This is 5 to 49, this is 50 to 99, this is 100 to 499, and this is 500 and above. The dark red bricks is what do we have today? And the pink bricks is what do we still have to build? And then over here on the far left, it's tiny, tiny dots, but these are startups less than 5 people. And today we have about 230. Realistically, to drive this funnel, we need 10 times that. So behind these bricks are lots of logos. So we are inventorying companies already in those brick counts. And so that's a project that's underway in terms of trying to visualize and drive that. So in terms of the opportunities, which of course are challenges, we really have a 10x problem in our view. We need a whole lot more high potential people that are trying to start new companies, and we need a whole lot more quality support to get them to grow fast. Hence my comment earlier about we probably don't have enough programs and services if we achieve this 10x vision. We need these companies accelerated in a very targeted way. And for platform, we've identified 4 sectors that we're going to focus on, very similar to what you heard from Carrie and Jason, not surprisingly, because these are really Alberta strengths. So clean energy, clean tech, ag, digital technologies, particularly software as a service, and then finally Industry 4.0. We need a whole lot more investment. Calgary and Alberta has a lot of wealth that was made in oil and gas and real estate, but unfortunately not enough of it is getting directed to invest in the tech sector. So for that, we're working with partners to create investor education programs to try to educate and get more of the investment dollars put into this ecosystem. And finally, everything we're doing is built on what we call a rainforest principle to try to make sure that anyone that needs connected to somebody else gets that connection to happen at very high velocity. All of this needs to be supported by lots of talent because we hope that these companies will create lots of jobs and therefore need that talent to fulfill those positions. And the other thing this needs is corporate Canada that Jason mentioned also. We really need them to be more open to working with startups as potential solution providers. In terms of the audience here, my final slide here is just a question of how we might be able to collaborate together. One thing we're doing because of COVID, of course, like most people, we've digitized all of our service delivery. It's now online. We have programs like Junction and Summer that we're putting in canned programs that can really be delivered anywhere. And so if people are interested, we can offer this up for your community for free. Just give me a shout afterwards. From Platform Calgary, we've worked with partners at CED and Innovate Edmonton to really put in a policy advocacy program in place. We have commissioned this global consultancy called Startup Genome to benchmark Calgary against other global cities to see, where we at and where our policies at in order to help advocate on behalf of the tech community towards governments. Indeed, we, along with our partners, sent an open letter to the GOA advocating in terms of startup investment policy, matching investments, and government procurement to try to see if we can speed up the velocity of startups in the province. In partnership with the VCAA, we're working to enhance the Start Alberta portal. This is a portal for all of the Alberta startup ecosystem. So if you have startups in your community, I encourage them to create a profile on Start Alberta. It's free. That way we can get all these logos inventoried and we can get them counted and so we know where they are and also be able to help them. I mentioned already we're building an investor education program. So if you have investors in your community that would like to participate, we would love to be able to have them into those classes. We're building a seed fund accelerator, so eventually we will get a call out to see who would like to become a limited partner or maybe even charitable donor into the seed fund. And lastly, we are building a global network of advisors for these startups. So if you have interest in doing so, we'd love to get your help to get behind the startups. Thanks very much. There's my email address, and I have no idea if I managed that in 8 minutes.
No, that's great. So we have about 15 minutes here to have some questions and wrap up. So like I mentioned at the beginning, Nancy has been monitoring all the questions in the chat box. So Nancy, are there any questions for any of our presenters?
Yeah, there are. And this question, actually, I think that each speaker might have an interesting insight into this question, but the question is it really corporate Canada that is slow to commercialize innovation, or is it government regulations and bureaucracy? I think, Jason, that was based on a point that you made. Do you want to start us off with some insights into that?
Oh, there we go. Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we've surveyed our members as part of sort of barriers and enablers, um, generally in the top four barriers, one is probably usually third barrier of the four is lack of policy to drive adoption. So it's generally not the red tape associated with getting the project implemented, although that's always a constraint, particularly when you're doing hard tech deployment, when you're trying to build something and you need permits and other things, insurance and codes and standards to enable interoperability, but also just the red tape, the churn associated with corporate engagement. So whereas getting something done sounds, parties can agree to these things very quickly. As we know with large companies, there's a long cycle time and a significant due diligence around sort of moving things forward. Summer vacations, other priorities. So whereas, a startup has a very short kind of shot clock, and I'm sure Bob would attest to this, the cycle time in a large company, for a major project decision could be, 6 months, 12 months, maybe 18 months, and that's more than a lifetime for most startups.
Bob, do you have anything to add?
I would add to Justin's, I would add a 0 behind the time period. Big corporations, like some that I've worked for, from the time you take a good idea to them till the time they're ready to deploy it in the field can be 20 years. And so your startups die really quickly if they have to wait for that. And well, I'm really proud of some of the organizations I helped found. They're not as nimble as the startup community needs. Going to committee meetings for 2 years is a lifetime for a startup. Filling out, CDL, great program. I've attended some of them, really like it. But startups usually have an inventor. And the CDL is really good at driving that inventor to think like a business person. But they often don't have the capacity, right? As an inventor moves forward, there's a need to advance the technology readiness level. And that's where an inventor normally shines. And then there's the commercial readiness, the marketing readiness, the manufacturing readiness, all the things CDL demands. Usually the inventor doesn't have that capacity. And so we have to figure out how we provide support to them without diverting the attention away from the technology readiness. So anyway, I can go on if you want.
David, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the innovation centers we run is called the Alistair Ross Technology Center. And when I started with the organization 4 years ago, I went around and talked to the tech startups that are in the tech companies that are in the building. And the standard sentence went like this: I can sell my product faster in downtown blank than downtown Calgary. And those blanks would be Beijing, Oslo, London, Los Angeles, wherever it happened to be. So it's absolutely true that technology adoption, and particularly of startups, products and services, seems to be really, really a problem in Canada compared to other countries, particularly the US. So almost always first sales are out of the country for many of these. And I am sure Carrie has heard the same stories from CDL companies.
Well, Carrie, on that note, Carrie, let's hear some of your stories. What do you think?
So I have two things. I just want to respond to Bob's comment about the technical founder, and he's absolutely right. And I think what's really interesting about CDL is that, our mentors really push those founders. The founders typically are those technical minds behind the invention to then embrace the business side. So oftentimes we see, as an example, we know of a couple of our MBA students have now been hired to continue working with the company that they were assigned with. So that is part of our secret sauce is pushing that envelope and helping make those connections. To the piece around early adoption, I think what's a really interesting and very simple thing to remember is entrepreneurs go where the customers are, and investors go where the entrepreneurs are. And so it becomes a cycle. And I think it really is, how do we find those early adopters? For us, our corporate partners in particular help land those, if it's a trial, a field trial, a pilot test, we really look for those enablers who are what we would consider early adopters to technology, and how can we use the CDL platform to bring those two stakeholders together to ultimately result in a positive, which is a paid pilot, a first customer. We have a number of those that we're able to harness because of our network.
All right, thank you. Now this question just came in, and Carrie, this might be for you. This is a question as it relates to increasing wealth disparity, and can you suggest ways that we can target youth with skill training related to tech and innovation to prepare for future job opportunities?
Yeah, holy, awesome question, big question. And, I think as the economic developers of our amazing province, continuing to push our post-secondaries to and support our post-secondaries as we look at not just reskilling, which I think, Jason, you had some mention on that, but also what are skills for this future? What are upskills? And that really is staying as a group, as an economic developing group. I know when I worked for Calgary Economic Development, we were closely aligned with all of our post-secondaries and including SATE. And what does that look like? And so there's this constant communication of what is happening in the community, what are the skills of the future. That's connecting into what David was talking about, is those 236 startups, talking to them and saying, what do you need? What are you looking for? Who are the employees that you're hiring? And can you find them locally? And if we can't find them locally, stepping back and saying, why not? And does that then typically involves a conversation with our post-secondary? And I think as economic development agencies, you really become that conduit to allowing those conversations to happen. Those are my personal opinions on that.
Well, David, what do you think? What kind of skills do we need?
Well, for sure, in terms of the software development skills and AI, machine learning, data analytics, these are of course well understood and well known. The other thing, we are also encouraging university students, particularly the graduating class of 2020, for whom employment opportunities are unfortunately super dismal for the obvious reason. We're trying to help them see, would you like to try starting a company? And so we're working with the University of Calgary, Ambrose, Mount Royal, Calgary post-secondaries basically, and we have a program called Summer Incubator. It's better than free. We provide a stipend to the university student such that their summer job is starting a company. So we've gotten sponsorships from RBC and Western Economic Development. So all the money from those sponsors go towards student stipends to pay them over the summer to go learn how to be an entrepreneur. So, most often, I think probably all of us went to university with the mindset of becoming an employee of some corporation. We're also trying to introduce a mindset of perhaps you can start your own corporation. So this is I just want to remind people that, that's also a good thing to encourage, particularly university students, but even as early as K to 12. The reason that is, as I said, in Calgary for sure, likely Alberta, we have a 10x problem compared to other jurisdictions globally. We are like 1/10 the number of tech startups per capita compared to other leading centers. That is a very large gap. So we do need lots more people, lots more youth trying to start tech companies.
Nancy, I just want to add to that. When David was talking about K to 12, I had a really amazing opportunity. David and I both, actually, when we were in Fort McMurray, we went on they took us through their local innovation, and we went to a high school that they showcased a teacher who's built a computer lab, and they are award-winning. The teacher is award-winning, but his lab and his initiatives that he has created in the high school at Fort McMurray was astounding. The robotics that they're building and how they're using virtual reality. And it was stunning to see, and how competitive this program has become. It grew from a summer project into a full-time process. And I think those are the initiatives that we as a community can get behind. And it really is, how can we support? It may not necessarily be money. It might be knowledge. It might be experience. It's just, that to me is a really, that is where we can rally all of the wealth that we have in Alberta around those types of projects.
Thanks for your thoughts. Oh, one last point, Bob.
Yeah. So as a result of COVID and distance working, we've had people proving they can work from home, which is an opportunity for municipalities, et cetera, where people don't have to move to the big city to work. You can have a good paying job distance. It also means we're competing internationally and globally. It proves, we're going to be in a very competitive market with talent around the world. So one of the things we really need to do for our workforce is to help them learn to develop and manage their own personal brand. It's less about the brand of your employer and more about your brand and what you can bring to the table and why that has value.
All right, Bob. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Leanne, I'll turn it over to you. I know that we have a pretty hard stop at 1:00, so I'll let you wrap things up.
That's great. Well, thanks again, David, Carrie, Jason, and Bob, for taking the time to spend with us today and giving us a little more about your organizations and the things that you're trying to do. David, the more you talked, first was free, then it was you're going to pay people to do. We should stay on another hour and see what else you could come up with. But thank you again, Mayor Herron, for the support from AUMA. We have our last webinar is next week. This time, Wednesdays, free again. It's on Alberta's natural resource future. So we're going to be talking on that front. So thanks again. We will be sharing the slides that we have with you. The video will be uploaded probably by tomorrow. And once again, thank you very much for taking the time, and I wish all of you a great and safe week. So hope to see you next week.